Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Peak Human. I'm Brian Sanders. I'm the creator of the Food Lies docuseries, nosetotale.org, and the Sapien Center here in Austin. Thanks for going back and listening to all the old episodes. I'm proud of every single one of them. You got to go back and listen. Please share with a friend or family member. Get them on board with the real nutrition, ancestral health, all the good things we talk about. And another good one today with my pal Tara Couture, my mentor, my hero, the international treasure, Tara Couture. She has her own farmstead where she grows all her own food. She's a retired registered holistic nutrition practitioner. She's been feeding her family this way for over 29 years. She's a legend. I don't think anyone does it better than Tara or knows more about the ancestral way of eating and how to feed yourself properly and what it's like to be a human, how to be one with nature, how to grow your own food, how to live off what the land provides. She's an amazing mother. She's an amazing wife. She's an amazing chef. She's amazing at everything she does. She just started eating almost pretty much 100% from her property, from food that she grows herself with her husband, Troy. We talk about so many interesting topics, all the good ones that you've grown to love here at Peak Human. What a special episode. Please enjoy this one with Tara Couture. Hello, Tara Couture returns.
Hello, Brian Sanders, still here.
Wow. Was this your first podcast ever on Peak Human like 5 years ago?
Was it 5 years ago? Oh my gosh. It might have been.
Actually, it was 4 years ago. Does that sound right? 2019. It was before the world shut down.
Yes, it was before the world shut down. And you could still get into Canada.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I'm allowed. I don't know if I'm allowed anymore.
You're allowed back.
I've gone to Africa. So, okay. Well, I found my way to Africa using certain methods, but it was good. There's so much to catch up on. I've loved to see your journey along the way. I think it was your first podcast on Peak Human, and then everyone found out about you and wanted you on their show and wanted your content and your writing, and now you're a star.
No, but thank you for saying so. You're the star. You've got everything in the world going on over there in Austin.
No. We have a lot going on. It's fun, but you're still our role model. I don't remember much from our first podcast, but I remember knowing that Tara was my role model. This is how I'd want to live someday. So if people don't know, go back and listen to the first one. Go to your blog. It's on Substack.
Yeah, just slowdownfarmstead.com.
And you left Instagram?
For now, yeah. Are you still liking Instagram?
I love Instagram. I have to. It's just where I am. It's where I have to be. They've stopped trying to censor me.
Oh, well, that's good.
I almost got kicked off. Of YouTube. Yeah. I'm still there. So update us. Tell us, if people aren't going to go back and listen, tell us where you're calling from and how you live.
I'm calling from Ontario, Canada, and we live on a 100-acre homestead here where we raise all of our own food, and we have diverse homesteads. So we have meat, rabbits, sheep, beef cattle, dairy cattle, ducks, geese, turkeys, and we didn't raise pigs this year. Might not do that again, I'm not sure. And grow all of our own food. That's what we're doing up here.
And it took you many years to get here. And we filmed with you in 2019 for Food Lies that we're still trying to finish. Jay and I came up. We had Christy as well. And so people can look forward to you in the Food Lies series. And tell us more about what you do there and how you got here, because people aren't necessarily going to go back and listen to that episode. But if you want the full version, go back. But she has a 37-year history, I think, getting to being able to raise her own food.
Yeah, well, we have three daughters, and we started accessing all of our food when they were still young through farms. And so at that time, my husband Troy was still in the military, and so we moved around a lot. And so every time we would move, we'd have to go find our farmers and to get our food. And so we just learned through the years. I started working on farms, volunteering on farms. I trained as a holistic nutritionist, so I was doing that. And so nutrition and health was always really important to us. And we had a pretty meager budget, so we had to learn how to economize. And in order to do that, we had a couple of deep freezers that we picked up for a couple bucks off Kijiji or Craigslist, whatever it was. And we would buy all of our animals in the fall after fall harvest. And when we wouldn't buy cuts of meat because we simply couldn't afford cuts of meat. But what ended up happening is I would have a whole bison in my freezer and a whole cow in my freezer, and, the whole chickens and the whole turkeys. And so in order for us to be able to eat that way, I had to learn how to cook in a way that utilized all the parts of the animal. And so I didn't grow up eating like that, but I had to learn because we had to make sense, be able to afford these things. And so that's sort of what led us down the path where I started working on farms more. We ended up buying our first farm about 13-ish years ago. And at that time, we were selling grass-fed beef, and we were selling organic pastured pork. And we were there for 5 or 6 years. And then we decided that we wanted to continue what we were doing, but on a smaller scale, just for us. And so we moved to the farm that we are living on now. And so now we're continuing doing what we're doing. We raise all of our animals are born here. We keep animals that are able to birth out and nurture their own offspring, which makes us less dependent on bringing in animals from hatcheries or off farm. And then we shoot and butcher all of our own meat, including the cattle. And we try and eat as seasonally and respective of the animal as possible. So for us, that means we're not using lights to get extra eggs in the winter. We think that it's important to work with the cycles of nature. And so if the chickens only give us 1 egg a week, then we have 1 egg a week. We get more than that because we have more chickens. But and the same thing goes, like, we're not breeding our meat rabbits during the winter because we don't want to give them any of the rabbit kibble stuff that you have to get off farm for extra energy. And so they're just eating organic hay. And so it's kind of, animals, just like people, have natural rhythms and cycles, and we try and respect that as much as possible. So we don't milk our dairy cattle in the winter. To milk dairy cattle in the winter where I live means I would have to take the calf off the animal, and the calf is always with the mother on our farm because that calf is going to be our cow one day. And so it needs to be as vibrant and healthy as possible, not fed milk replacer like powdered baby formula. And so those things are all, we always have like a long-term vision of what we want to do. And we don't want to bring in a bunch of organic grain in the winter, so we don't have raw dairy in the winter. But that doesn't mean you can still have it. And that's why cheese exists and these aged dairy, fermented products. It just means we don't have fresh milk in the winter. So, and then, the final part that I spoke to is just the harvesting of all of our animals here. I learned that through my mentor. It's very important to us to keep our animals completely low stress and to take on that responsibility ourselves. And so we'll age it here, and then we do all the butchering and processing of the meat here as well.
It's incredible. I got to eat it. I got to experience some meals. It was on my birthday. Of all days, we ended up there filming for Food Lies, and no feast could be this good. No, there's no amount of money that could buy this. Everything was from your land. The cow was raised. You and Troy, you have these big equipment and front loaders and all these things that you can hoist up the entire carcass. And what do you do? Chainsaw it in half?
Well, it's not a chainsaw, but yeah, we have a saw, a meat saw.
Bandsaw. All right. Sorry to cut in here with this great episode, but Tara gave me a big compliment saying that she is supportive and loving of what I do. So I need to tell more about what I do. It's Nose to Tail, nosetotale.org. It's where we do regenerative agriculture here in Texas. We do the best practices and we get the meat out to you straight to your door, all 48 states. We have the best meat you can get. I dare someone to find better raised meat. Check it out. Make your own box. We pay half the shipping. Get it at nosetotale.org. And the body care products. We got our deodorant finally. Our hair care products, they're so good. They make your hair smell great. They condition it. They are food for your hair food and skin food. We have the body cream, the moisturizing cream that is food for your body. This stuff is all natural, made from beef tallow and essential oils. Really good stuff. Check it out at nosetotale.org. Thanks for supporting our small business and our great producers. And now back to the show. Yeah, they do it all. I don't know of anyone that does all this that you two do and live this way. And I'm glad someone's doing it because the best some people can do is just go to their local farmer's market, which is a bridge too far for many. But this is the ultimate way to do things. Like, that's why we wanted to get you in the film and just, I think you're just a national treasure. I think I think I called you that before, a world's treasure of just the nicest, just best human ever. And I'm so glad that you're spreading your message beyond just your little town up there. And I know people are learning from you. You used to have an amazing Instagram that we mentioned. That's how I found you years and years ago, searching nutrient density hashtag and seeing the most nutrient dense plates I can imagine. And they're still there, I think. Is it still up? Can people still see it?
Yeah, it's all still there. And I make a little pop-in appearance every now and then, and I might start posting some stuff on there maybe once or twice a week again, but everything that I've ever posted is all still there for sure. Yeah.
We'll scroll back. You'll see some of these meals. I can't even imagine, like the jars and roulettes and, mousses and pâtés and aged and fermented and sun-dried herbs. And maybe you could just describe a couple of these things that you prepared for us just to make people jealous.
Well, I don't even remember anymore. You probably remember better than I do. I think, well, I don't even know what we had. I'm sure we had what I eat all the time. So there was probably fermented vegetables. Stuff. Yeah, exactly. This is normal stuff. Yeah. I guess there was probably some raw dairy.
Yeah, what is that normal stuff?
Yeah, so our diets depend on the season. And so, in the winter time, it's sort of the things that I've I ferment vegetables throughout the summer, and then we keep them in our root cellar. And then, we'll just go pull out a bottle of, we just had fermented carrots yesterday. They were still crispy and zingy and delicious. And we eat those more like a condiment to our food, right? So we had that with a brisket. So we had a big brisket and we had some of the fermented carrots, and, that's kind of a meal for us right now because that's what's on offer. So we don't even have strawberries ready right now. There's nothing like that. Like a real treat in the winter is pulling out some canned apple butter that I've preserved or something like that. But then as spring is here now and there's the nettles are growing and there's different wild foods that are growing, I like to really use a lot of wild foods because I think there's a lot of nutrition and diversity in that plant that there's not in things we have to plant and baby in the ground. Our tiny little selection of vegetables that we have access to. So, and we have one of our cows our dairy cows is probably going to have a calf today or tomorrow. And so we'll be back to having milks and yogurt and stuff like that again, cream, which we haven't had all winter. So I had some stuff stored, and we had a little bit of cheese that we had to be really careful with. And I guess that's the other part of it too, is over this last year of just 100% eating from our farm, you know, it makes you cognizant of the limitations of things. You know, I have some apple butter in my root cellar, but I see there's 4 jars of apple butter left, and we're in January. So it's not like that idea, like, oh, I can just go to the grocery store and buy another jar. It's endless. You know, it's just, we kind of get ruled by our whims instead of the actual constraints of what a place can offer. And I really like that. I like that idea. It's the same sort of like with an animal, you know, like when we butcher a steer as an example, like I have an intimate relationship with that animal. I know that animal. He has a name. You know, I was there when he was born. So I know the history of that animal, and I can see that when we are butchering it, I get this immediate feedback of how well I've done taking care of that animal. Like, it's all right there. You get that hide off, and that animal is going to have like a nice fat layer just from the grass, and the organs are glistening, and it smells sweet, and everything is dense and firm because that animal has moved its body. Like our animals, we do silvopasture, like, so we're forest grazing as well. And so they are eating hundreds, if not thousands, of different plant species. I don't even know what many of them are. You know, they're eating leaves and shrubs and bushes, and that all shows up in the meat. And I think that all those things, you know, when we're harvesting these animals, is that feedback, but there's also limits there too. So I have one brain from that animal. I have one heart. I have a liver. And so it's like, you know, for us, we go through 3 steers a year in our family, and along with all the other meat, but there's limits on that, right? So I can't just be plowing down, like eating heart every day, because I have 3 beef hearts, or, you know, like there has to, and it's the same thing with everything all across the board. Like, you know, whether it's eggs or dairy or even vegetables or the fruit, like the berries that we have here, it's not like I can just keep going and buying bags and bags. There's limits to that. And I think that in our system right now, there's no limits to anything. If you want to eat mangoes every day, you can eat mangoes every day, but they're not from where you are. Well, I mean, I'm speaking for myself. So obviously there are places where there's mangoes, but they're not there every day. I can promise you that they have a season. Everything has a season. And I think that that's been one of the, I thought it would be sort of confining, but I've actually enjoyed having those limits put on me.
Well, it's a lesson that you're learning and that we're going to talk more about, and that I'm really interested in, and that we talked about before we started. Everyone knows how screwed up modern society is, and on how unhealthy everyone is and all this, but this is a learning experience of how humans have lived for 99% of human existence. Is we had to live by the season and with nature. And there's a whole new level of connection and good feeling and healthiness that you started to talk to me about before we started recording, when you do that. And that no one knows how good you can feel, I think. How have you felt? Because you started 85% about eating from your land. And I guess you could buy or trade some stuff around you, get some pecans down the street, get some wild salmon. Is that correct? And now you're 100%. So this is a whole journey that you're now going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were probably 85, 90% from our farm, which I think a lot of people don't even understand how rare that is. Like, how there are so many farms where they don't grow any of their food. It's astonishing. And when you think about like crop farmers, I know a lot of them. I've been to their houses, and their disconnect from food is astonishing to me. I mean, I've been to a farm where they were, had thousands of acres that they were growing, and they were drinking Diet Coke when I was talking to them. Like just because there's a farm doesn't mean the people are eating from the farm. And the people that do eat from their farm, it's very rare to be, solely reliant on yourself. And I want to say that I don't think it's necessary that you are. I think that we all live in communities, and we should be interdependent on our communities. I love that I have farmer friends around me where I could go and like trade or barter something that I've grown for something that they've grown. I love that, and I think it's important, and I think it fosters community. But we wanted, just as an experiment, to see what that difference would be for us to go from that 85, 90% to 100%, to let go of all those extra things. I sometimes talk about those foods as static in our bodies. And what I wanted to see was, well, first of all, if we could do it, but also I wanted to be forced to really put a lot of thought into things and be careful with what we had, because there was no fallback. So if we run out of, if we blaze through all the beef, I can't go to my neighbors and say, I'll give you some lamb for some beef. Then I'm eating lamb, or what I'm saying. So I've wanted those limitations put on me. But I guess what I found was that, not only like was I more careful in the summer and the fall, because as I always process our own food, like I'll can things, ferment things, all that stuff. But I had to make sure that I was thinking a full year from one harvest to another harvest. And here that's in the fall, the animals are harvested in the fall when they're at their fattest and most nutrient dense. They're not harvested all year round. And so it's the same thing with the vegetables or the fruit or anything else. And so what I found is just how much more connected I feel to this place and what it gives me, and to the rhythms of nature. And I think some of that is, this might be a little bit like woo for some people, but for me, it feels quite honest. And that's just that where I am, like where you are, we have different, there's different, I'll just take one step back and say, for the last couple of years, I've really been cognizant of like circadian rhythm and rising with the sun and being outside with the sun, and, being really careful with light in our house and grounding, and just sort of reconnecting to the natural rhythms of nature. And it was profound how much better I slept, how much better I was able to perform in the gym, how much more energy I had, how much more level I felt. So those little things, just like with being careful with light and being in nature, really helped me on my health journey, because I was quite sick for quite a long time before, with Lyme disease. And so this has helped me even more. And so by eating this way and eating seasonally, but also from place. And I don't think place has to be like literal place, like your farm. I think it means the farmers around you, like the place that you're living in, the thing, that when we do that, we're also connecting to the messages of the food that's familiar to our bodies. So, I really believe that everything that comes into our body is a message, whether it's like the food or the water or your lover. Everything is a message to our bodies. And that message can be one that is received and understood, or it can be chaotic. When you consider, and I've written about this, a package of ground beef from the grocery store. I think me and Kate Kavanaugh were talking about this. It was like between 50 and 200 different animals in that 1 pound of ground beef. So what the heck is that telling your body as you're bringing that into your body? Like, it's messages, it's chaos, it's chaotic. And so I think that that resonance of eating from place gets rid of a lot of useless messaging that we're receiving right now, like whether that's, you know, you have to be eating this if you're going to be healthy, or you have to be eating that if you're going to be healthy. If you're eating from a place that is growing and moving through different seasons and having the same sun on it and the same weather patterns, and it's familiar, I think those things are really profound when we take that messaging into our bodies. And a lot of that isn't even spoken about. And I think that's because it seems hard or obscure, but it's not at all. It's not at all. It's literally connecting to your farmers around you in your area. And, you know, the more small farmers, the better. That's what's going to save us, is a bunch of small farms, not one big giant one that's going to cover everyone's asses. That's not how it's going to work. And that, just doing that one thing, blows away a lot of chaff, and it gets us to the core of like being able to eat real foods, unprocessed foods, connecting to people within our community, connecting to nature, connecting to the resonance of how our bodies, our animal bodies, are living and thriving. And yeah, I think it's been really profound for us, and I've enjoyed it so much that I don't know, you know, I'm happy to go back in the next, you know, after our year's over, and be bartering with my friends again, and stuff like that. But I think I'm going to keep doing what we're doing as far as like having those limits on myself. You know, if I can 6 jars of peaches, well, we have 6 jars of peaches for 1 year, but oh my God, should you taste those peaches when you get to have them? It makes everything more special, and makes you appreciate the abundance of what we have even more.
I think that's amazing. So you felt different. There's been like small changes that you've actually felt.
Very profound in a lot of ways, things I didn't expect. I just feel more connected to where I am, and more connected in a deeper way to nature, to the cycles of nature. But my body just feels, and it's a hard thing to measure or quantify. I just feel better. I feel more energetic. And like I was telling you, like I'm in my 50s, and you know, I guess I'm technically perimenopausal. My cycle is as regular as it's always been. Like I think that the body's natural desire is to keep us healthy and thriving always. And when we're not, it's because there's just static interference from all these different places. And I feel like this is just one of the ways, and maybe I might be further down the continuum than some other people because I've been living, you know, how I have been for quite a few years. But I feel like this is one of the things that is accessible to most people, not all, but it's accessible to many people. And I think just by making the commitment of being able to eat from place is worthy of people's time and investment, just to see how it makes them feel too, because it's been really wonderful for us. We've really enjoyed it.
Well, I hope people are watching this video to see the shock that you're in your 50s. Like,
Bless
it doesn't
your
make any
heart.
sense. You look incredible. It's just insane. Your husband, Troy, as well, who's not pictured, but I know him, and I know he's an absolute beast. He is a specimen. And this is what happens when you eat like a human. And then we need to rethink aging, I think. We went to Africa. We spent time with the hunter-gatherers, and we were with Mary Ruddick, who people know from my show and whatever else she's done. We were asking all these questions to these people. Like, do you have back pain? We were asking the elderly people in these tribes, and they didn't know what we were talking about. They're like, back pain and knee pain. You're like, what do you mean? We don't have back pain. Like, we finally through the translator, they said, "Oh yeah, this guy like fell out of a tree last month."
Oh my God.
Like, no, not that kind of back pain. Do you have any chronic pain? And they're like, no. Do they have any trouble, with your period? They're no. Do you have any trouble with childbirth? No. The baby just pops out. Like this, we don't even know what it's like to be a human anymore. We just think that you shrivel up and you hit 50 and then you have menopause. And then if you're a man, you have low testosterone and you can't do anything and you have a pot belly and that's it. We need to rethink this. And Tara's living that. She's going to be our test subject.
Oh, I hope so. I hope I'll be in my 80s. But I think it's so true what you say. And I think the fact that we're given these examples of like sick, decrepit people, the messaging we receive, like even about menopause, like you're going to be a psycho and it's just miserable. And like when you get your period, it's miserable. It like programs us to accept these dysfunctions and disease states as like normal. And it's all symptoms of us having fallen way off the path of what is and should be vibrant health. Like that is our birthright. And I think that if anyone's not feeling that way, they need to be their own investigator and start looking into and understanding that the symptoms are there as friends to help us figure out what's going on. There's something bigger going on. Troy, my husband, is an ER physician, and he comes home after every shift, and the stories that he has of late teen, early 20s people that are coming in for, all diseases of civilization, basically, metabolic issues that are manifesting in different ways. Mm-hmm. And without fail, they all want that pill. They're all asking for the pill to make them better and get quite irate when he has to let them know there's no pill, it's your lifestyle. But this is sort of the mentality that it's very dangerous to accept that messaging as truth because it's not true. It's absolutely not true. We just became grandparents this year. And so this little being is like, just such a light in our lives. And my whole motivation, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to look hot, I wanted to look good. I wanted to be fit. I was in the military. I wanted to be as fast as the guys running. I wanted to be able to do pull-ups. Like it was all ego-driven stuff. That's what health was for me in my early 20s, late teens. Like it was just ego-driven stuff. And now in my 50s, it's like, I want to be able to be on the ground, with my grandbabies. I want to be able to run across the field and beat them. Like I want to be able to get down off the ground and jump up and I want the quality of life that allows me to go into these next few decades of my life, if I'm still here, vibrant and thriving. I see absolutely no possibility of me being some decrepit, broken person, because then, what's the point? What's the point of just withering away for the last 2 decades of your life and being on different medications? And so that's why I think it's important for me right now and important for our family to sort of be honing in on these things and to be trying to connect more to the feedback of our bodies than the gurus telling you to do this or to do that, or you need a whole bunch of sugar and orange juice. No, you don't. You need to just eat this, like purely eat like, grains and seeds to be a vegetarian, or you need to be 100% carnivore. You need to do whatever it is. Like I think we can bring it through the filter of how we feel. And I think how we feel is very much connected to how we understand ourselves in place, in nature, as animals ourselves, animals with spirit, obviously, but I mean our animal bodies and what we need, and listen to how our bodies respond to things. If someone tells you this is the way and you try it and you feel like crap, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It may just be that you're getting too far away from what your body actually needs. So yeah, I think that those motivators, the things that drive us to want to do something like what you're doing and all these different projects that you have going on. I mean, it's so, I respect that so deeply. And it really speaks to your passion and your authenticity in this space. And I really respect that, Brian, because there's a lot of people that are just saying things and doing things because they want a business out of it. And people can sniff that out, people can sniff out what's authentic and genuine. And hopefully that we as people can start supporting people more, like what you're doing with your businesses, what you're doing with your entire life speaks to the honesty around that. And we need to each cultivate that in ourselves as well.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel like I've had good influences like you, and
Oh,
that have kept me on track. And I feel like we have this little club of people who get it, and it's really fun to be a part of these health community because everyone's kind of on the same page and helps each other and gets it. And then there are some people on the outskirts that they're just trying to make a buck, and they're just trying to market some new biohacking little device or something, and people can see through that.
mm-hmm.
But you brought up a good point that we should go in a little deeper on it. Yeah, you talk about the nutrition gurus saying this, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you because it's good for them. I like to use Saladino as an example. Paul's great, and he's in Costa Rica surfing all day. We don't all
Yeah.
need to eat like Paul. You know what I mean? He's great. He's awesome. He's doing good work. I love him. But so many people, they're up in Canada, wherever, they're up in the north, they're in the winter, and they think they need to be eating like 5 pineapples and 10 mangoes every day because Paul does. No, you don't. That doesn't make any sense. He's on the equator. He's in Costa Rica surfing all day. He could
And
do that.
he's what,
Talk
in
about
his
that more. It's like
30s?
there's so many different parts of the world. No, well, he's 42 to
Okay.
45, somewhere in between
Yeah.
42 and 45.
Yeah, it's funny because I think if my husband ate like Saladino does, he'd be okay for a bit. Um,
Troy has enough
um,
muscle to dispose of
he
all
can,
kinds of
he
food.
can. That's right. But me,
His body can handle that. His body.
if I ate like that, I would not be doing well at all. And it's simply too much sugar for me. It's too much carbohydrate for me. And so, I could get into this, like, we can all do this. We can get into this back and forth about why it's necessary. And if you can't handle that, then that means there's something broken in you and you need to fix what's broken in you by eating more of it. And there's like, I guess the good thing about being in my 50s and having been in nutrition for so long is these cycles go around and around, and it's like, oh, we're back here now. Okay, I remember when we were back here, like the Ray Peat stuff. I was hearing about that quite a lot, many years ago, and we're sort of back to that now. And so I think in all of this, maybe there's some truth. Like, I mean, ultimately, I think we need to be able to listen to our bodies and to get that feedback. And that's where I think the problem comes in. So when someone so we're just kind of using him as an example. I think like a lot of what he does is great. And I love that he speaks to, eating like clean sources of our food and stuff. I don't agree with everything he says, but that's okay because he's not my age. And if he was my age and living where I'm living, and not surfing and, spent his day outside doing a lot of more like physical labor, shoveling, digging, that sort of thing, he may find like, that what he's doing, where he's doing right now wouldn't work for him. As well. Or maybe it would. I don't know. I can't speak to his body, but I know for me, that doesn't work. And like I said, how I ate in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, and now my 50s keeps evolving. And so if we don't know how to listen to ourselves, we're not going to evolve. And I think this gets us into problems. We hear what some health guru says is the way, we do it. It works pretty good initially, almost for everyone, whether it's a vegetarian diet, a carnivore diet, whatever. It takes a little while, and then maybe things don't feel as good or things aren't working as well. And so we try and do it harder, or we try adding all these other extreme sort of things. And all the while, we're kind of missing out on that feedback from our bodies. And I really think that the more we dull down that feedback or ignore it, then, symptoms, then we start getting symptoms, or our body's like, hey, this is not right. I'm either, your period you start getting cramps when you never had cramps, or you start getting aches, or like you were talking about, like, talking to those people in Africa about like chronic states of pain, and they don't even understand that language. And all of these things is simply feedback from our bodies, which want us to thrive and feel good. And it's messaging coming to us. And so, when we ignore that because somebody said this is the way, we get in trouble. And I think that we just end up bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing. And so, I'm looking outside the window right now. The lilacs are just starting to bloom. The flowers are just coming on the strawberries. There's some medicinal mushrooms that I was harvesting yesterday that I put into my bone broths. But there's not a heck of a lot of food going on yet for me, or even the cattle. They just got put on pasture yesterday. So it's just starting here. So for me to be eating mangoes and pineapple and bananas is completely ridiculous. Like, what am I telling my body when I'm eating a banana from, I don't know, South America somewhere, and I'm eating a mango from another part of the world somewhere, and I'm eating, and here we don't even have the light quality or the weather or the soil that could grow any of that. So what is the messaging that I'm putting into my body? We're still eating, beef, and we still have potatoes in the root cellar. We still have like turnips in the root cellar. I have fermented vegetables from last summer. Everything is getting dwindled down now. And I can tell just by what's here that we'll have some like wild plants that I can forage, but we just eat those as condiments anyway. But I still have, quite a few meat rabbits that are put away. And I still have quite a few turkeys and geese, and and some lamb, a little bit of beef. So we're sort of on the tail end of last year's harvest, and things now I can see, because I'm going to start trying to squirrel away those animal foods, because I don't want to run out until September, October, when we harvest again, that are more carbohydrates are going to come into our diet. But those carbohydrates are from plants that we grow and we forage from here. I can't grow bananas or mangoes or anything like that here, but I can grow berries, and berries grow wild, and ice cream, which and nuts. I don't eat a lot of nuts, though. They cause problems for me. But anyway, so, everybody has a place. Everybody's living somewhere. And I think it's by connecting to the small farmers around you. And maybe you don't know what grows locally around you. And maybe you don't know that animal foods are seasonal. I think most people don't. Maybe they don't understand that eggs are hard to come by in the winter unless you start manipulating things. And, dairy starts getting fed grain in the winter where I live. Does that matter to you? Do you care? Is it maybe better to switch to cheeses in the winter? Like, it's through this connection to place, but also to the farmers that are growing food, if you're not growing it yourself, and respecting these sort of, abundant flourishes and dwindling sort of scarcity that I think our bodies need. That's why we do things like cold plunges and fasting, and we're doing these like hermetic stresses all the time on our bodies, sort of giving it these little pulses. But it's the same thing, with our food, and it makes you appreciate things all the more too.
Appreciation is huge. Like back to your peaches example. It's like if that's all you have, then you appreciate every bite. And so many people these days, I mean, it's impossible to have appreciation if you can go to the store and it's endless and it's like $1.20 for,
Yeah.
like 10 peaches or something ridiculous. And you can't have appreciation. It's like why I moved out of LA. You can't have appreciation for your fellow human if there's 39 million other humans right there. It's just not really possible. It's like
Yeah.
New York City. The value of life is just less. You can't get around it. And you go to the extreme opposite. If you lived in a town of 100 people, everyone matters.
Mm.
Everyone, you know what I mean? It's totally different. It's just this inherent thing of like you can't get around that. And this
Mhm.
goes with food. And I wanted to talk about an adjacent point. You're talking about the your body and symptoms and stuff like that. And I've always had this idea of how crazy it is that modern society, you have symptoms, you have skin problems, or you're gaining weight around your belly, or you have like a certain thing going on in your body. That's a warning light. That's like the check engine light in your car. And people, instead of being like, huh, so wait, maybe I'm eating too many mangoes in the winter, or maybe I'm getting too many oxalates from these kale shakes that I'm drinking every day with spinach and whatever. Instead of thinking about that, it's just, oh, I need to go get a medication to make this skin thing go away. Or, we're trying to cover up the problem. You're putting duct tape, masking tape over the check engine light. It is absolutely wild. And that is what everyone does. And I did it too. For years I did it until I realized like, oh, this is your body's trying to talk to you. It can't talk to you. This is its only form of communication. And people don't realize it.
Yeah, it's huge. And I sometimes I struggle to explain to people how intrinsically how we live and eat is tied to those symptoms. Like even people that are kind of, yeah, okay, I get it. Like they're bought in and they'll say, I have this chronic issue with my left hip. And I'm like, what are you eating? And they're like, oh, no, no, like I eat good. And for some people, and I'm one of them, I'm this canary in the coal mine. There are sometimes you have to go even further than you logically think you should. People, we like to be like, oh, no, no, like I eat really good. Yeah, I eat, organic and I eat, and sometimes you have to really drill down. Like, and I try to explain to people sometimes that it may be something that seems obscure, but it can be transformative. So I'll just give you an example. I had after my third baby, who was 10 and a half pounds, I had really weird pain in my lower left back. I had it no matter what I did, no matter what type of, and I went from, all sorts of alternative healers. I went to chiropractors. I had prolotherapy where they jab these big needles in your back. I did all sorts of things. And it was years. And it just got to the point where I guess I'm just going to have this left lower back pain for the rest of my life. And around the time when I got sick with Lyme disease, and I really started, and I was one of those people, I eat really well. I was eating from farms. We didn't eat processed foods. I didn't eat sugar. I was, I just considered this was just how my life was after having this baby. And so when I got sick with Lyme and I had to get really, really careful with what I was eating, and there was a period where I was just solely carnivore, and that really helped to heal me. And but before that time, even I got rid of even more foods in my diet. One of those things I got rid of were the soaked and dehydrated organic nuts that I would eat, which I wouldn't eat a lot, but I would buy organic nuts. I'd soak them. I'd properly prepare them. And when I got rid of those nuts, I woke up one morning. I still remember this. I got out of bed and I was like, wait, something's messed up here. What's going on? Zero pain in my left lower back. And it had been 6-7 years of that. And anyway, I ended up deducing that it was the nuts. And to this day, I have zero pain in my lower left back. But if I ate a handful of organic, sprouted, dehydrated, I mean, we're talking perfectly prepared nuts, that pain comes back within an hour. And I'm like, oh my God, I forgot I used to have this pain all the time. And so for whatever reason in my body, when I had that injury, maybe I was eating nuts at the time, maybe my body just, I have no idea. But this is what I'm talking about. Like when people have symptoms, sometimes you have to be a real detective. And sometimes our brains will be like, well, it couldn't be that because like raw milk is good for me, but maybe raw milk isn't good for everybody. And so I have problems with those like blanket statements that we have to eat certain foods because it's not true for different bodies, right? And so we have to, if we're not tied into those symptoms and willing to dig around and figure out what it is, then yeah, we do end up with chronic issues that just never go away.
It's super hard because, the same thing happened to me. Because for one, it's hard to be that in tune with your body. Most
Yeah.
people absolutely are the opposite, and they just eat whatever comes across them, and they're just a mess. But then when you think about the people who are focused on it, you still have to. I fell to the same thing where I thought I was doing it all right, and then I realized, and raw dairy is an example. Maybe I'm not ready for it. Maybe I still have to like heal my gut a little, or I have no idea. When I drink raw dairy, I get allergies. It's crazy. It's like automatic. I
Mm-hmm.
will start sneezing and get like a stuffy nose. Maybe
Mm.
if I lean into it more, maybe you can help me if I, start slower and dose it, or maybe I need to go find some A2. I don't remember if ours are A2 or A1, but maybe the raw dairy is not going to work for me.
I think that like where we are in this world right now, like you and I are not the same type of human beings that lived here 200 years ago or even 150 years ago, right? The environmental assaults, we're all vaccinated when we're kids, like people our age anyway. Most of us were vaccinated. Most of us, like myself, I'll speak for myself. I had all the normal childhood vaccines and I was on antibiotics literally nonstop throughout my childhood because I had chronic strep throat. Like, in 1 year I was on antibiotics maybe 10 times. So, and that went on for years until I was 14 years old.
Mm.
So, I mean, and then we have all the environmental stuff going on around us too, the off gassing, the EMF, blah, 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 blah. And so I really feel like the body's amazing and the body wants to heal, but I've come to a place now where I'm not sure. This messaging, like what you're talking about with raw milk, as an example, I think that we raise probably the highest quality raw milk you could get anywhere. And the reason I say that is, the cows have zero stress. We hand milk. The calf stays with the mom, right? So there's none of that stress going on there. We then milk that calf when it becomes an adult. Our cows are A2. They're only fed grass. They're never fed grain. I mean, it doesn't really get better than that. I still don't drink a glass of raw milk. I might have a couple sips and delight in it, and I'll make things with it that are cultured, but to just drink some raw milk, my skin breaks out. And so, yes, then people will say, well, that's because you have to do it more. Trust me. Okay. I've been doing this since I was in my 20s. And so, is it okay that I can still thrive and be healthy and well and still work within what my body is capable of, understanding that I'm amazed that I am where I am given my background with my health, that I was able to reclaim the level of health that I have is such a gift to me. And I am so grateful for that. And do I need to be like insistent that, or do you need to be insistent that you keep drinking raw milk because damn it, someone said it was good for you. And so, allergies be damned. There's something broken with you. You got to force your way through this. Or do you just be like, you know what, I can still have some raw cheese every now and then and be good. And, I think that we need some sense in that as well. And so that's just where I am with that kind of stuff now.
Well, I agree. And it is just the raw milk. It's just like, I don't want to just drink cups of it. I can eat any cheese and yogurt and, like you said, cultured it or ferment it
Yeah.
or, make it into yogurt. That is a much better way to eat it, and I have zero problems with it. And yeah, so I agree. It's just, maybe it's just not good. Some people have their theories too, that we shouldn't be drinking just straight up raw milk into adulthood. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe it's just better to ferment it and culture it.
Yeah. I mean, in our family,
So
Troy, oh, sorry. Oh, I was just saying, in our family, like Troy will drink like, just a straight up glass of raw milk without issue, but mostly that's what we're doing is culturing the dairy. And we all do great with that. So I don't know, maybe it's our genetics, maybe it's whatever, but it's not because there's something that needs to be done extra with the cow, or it's just not special enough, or it's just not, it just is. So
yes, I've been to your farmstead, so yes, I completely agree. And what about what else did I want to talk about? Oh, about like terrain, like sort of germ versus terrain. This is kind of hotly debated. Some people in this health world are kind of on both sides, even, that I really respect. But I'm just thinking about getting sick. I don't get sick anymore. The only times that I've gotten close to getting sick, I deserved it. I knew exactly why. I went on vacation and I wasn't sleeping enough and I had some drinks and whatever happened, and I'm like, I know that I deserve this, but I still didn't get sick. Really. I just wanted to hear your take on that, because there's a huge spectrum of people between germs are completely bogus and fake and don't exist, to like they're everything, and that the terrain, and there's everything in between.
well, I don't get sick either, but I can make myself get sick pretty easily too. I mean, just by, eating too much sweets or going off the rails or something. But I mean, I haven't been sick in years, and I see the same thing with our animals too. It's amazing to me, because on my, I have a question and answer thing I do once a month on my Substack, but the farming questions are often about sort of like, what do you do about this sickness, or what do you do about that? And I'm like, my animals do not get sick. And it's not because there's anything magical happening over here. It's because our animals live how they're supposed to live. And I think we can glean a lot of that too, right? Like they're outside, the sun is on their backs. It's not milk being produced inside of a barn, and there's never sunshine or fresh air on those animals. The animals live inside, or the chickens live inside, or whatever. All the animals are outside. They're exposed to cold. They're exposed to heat. They have the natural stressors on their bodies. They have to walk to go get their food. They have to forage. They have to do these things. And it's the same thing with like us, I think. If you put a bunch of us inside of a zoo on concrete, we'd all be sick, even if you gave us the perfect macros and, the RDAs of whatever synthetic vitamins you were going to give us. We'd be sick. So I'm very much like, I think there's all sorts of bacteria and stuff that are out there, but, how come I was doing this thing the other day where I was taking pictures of all the probiotics that I take in a day, and nothing was in a pill. It was like a picture of my hands after I pet my cow, and they were literally black because like the oils and stuff in her. And then I go and I eat something with my fingers with that same filthy hand, or working in the compost and the soil, or shoveling crap out of like their house and putting it in a wheelbarrow, and like just like this exposure. So there is all these bacteria and funguses and all these sort of things that are present. Now, what if someone, that maybe ate Lay's potato chips and fast food came out and exposed themselves to the things that I'm exposed to in a day? Would they get sick? I don't know. And then if they get sick, let's say they do get sick, what's really even happening there in the body when you get sick? Is the body like, is it an immune response in the sense that, oh, I'm in this depleted state, or is your body adapting to something new? And is your body maybe detoxifying from other things that are there? Or is it being challenged and new things are, I just think, honestly, I think so much of what we know about the body is so rudimentary. We like to think we're so bloody smart and that we've got it all figured out. And I mean, the last 3 years has taught us all how miserable we are at even understanding basic human physiology. And so, yes, I think there's all these sorts of things. And, my husband and I were just talking this morning about how I'm reading a book on sunlight, and they were talking about how in hospitals, they used to design every room so there was sunlight coming in because they understood that, and in the sanatoriums and stuff, they understood the necessity of having the antibacterial, the beautiful sunlight coming in through the windows to people's health. And he was saying, like in the ICU, out of all the rooms there's 3 rooms with windows in them. And so, when you start considering like how tied we need to be to nature in order to be well, and when we're not, what is able to happen, I don't think that's a natural cause and effect. I think that everything always, when we live as we're supposed to live, everything trends towards health. And when things aren't trending towards health, it means that there's something going on, whether that's in our bodies, but our bodies should be able to withstand being a part of nature because that's what we were designed for. We're all part of one big ecosystem. So if we're not, there's something inherently going on with us. That's how I feel. If we are in nature. Now, put us inside of a city like you were mentioning before and stick us on a subway and there's no light and we're full of, if there's EMFs and all these other sort of assaults, then, I think that weakens all of us in some way.
It does. Yeah, I think I'm just more resilient because of my lifestyle in general that I can get away with things that other people can't. In the last 3 years, I just refused to wash my hands. I was like, I'm not going to wash my hands. They're telling me to. What if I just don't? What if I just spend every single weekend with people and not lock down for 1 second and nothing ever happened to me? What if I shared a drink with a homeless guy on Venice Beach? Nothing happens. What if I just live my life like normal and live like a human and be out in the sun and somehow everything tends to work out? Am I the luckiest man on the planet? Or is this just how humans should live? I have two anecdotes that I've brought up before. The main times I got sick in my life, UCLA was a trimester system. I went to UCLA for college. Trimester system, so it's sort of just these 3 random finals dates that we had finals throughout the year. Those were the only 3 days I got sick, or weeks that I got sick. So somehow there was the flu floating around all winter, never got it. But then on that final week, got it. When I wasn't sleeping, I was super stressed out. I was eating, I don't even know what I ate, like chips and chili, like canned chili on chips in a microwave. And yeah, of course. And then my other anecdote, it's like, so, but it's just so crazy. It's like, do people really think that this flu just like will just randomly get you and there's nothing that you can do and that it's all equal and that there's this flu season that just happens? What about the fact that that's when people have the lowest vitamin D at the end of the winter and everyone, has the poorest immune health? And it's just so wild to me that people don't understand this stuff. I'll let you say something before I tell my second story.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, having worked in an ER for the last 3 years, like my husband, and then coming home to us, none of us got sick. None of us got sick. So, if it's all germ and the amount of healthcare staff that were calling in sick, and still to this day are calling in, oh, I have COVID, I can't come in, is astonishing, especially given all the treatment therapies that everyone was taking. None of us got sick. at all. So it's just, anyway, that's just to back up the terrain theory a little bit. I don't think it matters what it is, whether it's a mass hyped virus or it's the seasonal flu or whatever it is. I don't think it matters really. You know, we can all definitely have control over how our bodies react. And I think that's a really good news story. I think that's profoundly powerful, and it should make us all feel hopeful and in control and in charge of our bodies. And that's truly what we are. We are in control and in charge of our bodies. We have to take that responsibility on. That's the big thing. If you want to be responsible for yourself, then there's just a whole amazing cascade of things that can happen with you and your health and your emotions and your spirituality and all these other things. But that's for us to make that decision for ourselves. But now you tell your other anecdote.
Well, it's back to the probiotics part, because I went to Africa and I spent time with these hunter-gatherers. And guess what? They didn't have Purell, and they didn't have those handy wipes, and they didn't have a single thing. They lived on the ground, and we got a little small antelope, and they cut it open with the dirtiest knife that's ever been existed on the planet. And they sliced through guts, and it had yellow and green stuff all over it. And they cut the liver, and the piece of liver and the knife had yellow and green guts on it and dirt. And I ate it, and I felt great. And I think I've had the best microbiome since. I feel like I should go and pay them for treatment. It's like the best gut doctor on the planet is going to Africa and eating off the ground. And I felt amazing the entire time. We were eating all kinds of random stuff. Of course, I don't care about washing my hands or doing any of that stuff the whole time too. Felt amazing. I didn't get one like upset stomach, not one sort of weird feeling ever. Spending 19 days in Africa eating random stuff. And also with the fiber part too, I think there's this whole scam with fiber and probiotics kind of in general, and the immune system and cleanliness and all kind of connected, where they claim that they have a good microbiome because they eat a lot of fiber. And they are not eating a lot of fiber. They're eating brains and guts and meat and skin and everything. And then they're gnawing on some tubers. You can't eat the fiber. They're not eating the fiber. They are baking these giant tubers that are fibrous, like they are not edible. You chew on them, and then they spit it out. I sat with these ladies while the men were hunting, and there's piles and piles of just fibrous gristle that they spit out, and I got some of it. You can't eat it. It's like chewing on sugar cane. You just get the juices out of it, and then you spit out the fibrous stuff. I think there's this, I don't know what's going on with this science. Everyone's so biased. These Harvard scientists go study the Hadza, and they claim they eat 100 grams of fiber per day. I think they're just weighing a giant tuber and saying, oh, that's 100 grams of fiber. This is insane. They're not eating this fiber. That is not why they have a good microbiome. Maybe they are eating a whole bunch of random little herbs and wild forages, things like you talked about. You're getting berries and little herbs and things as, accoutrement, to your meat. That's great. Fine. Yeah, I do that too. I like to eat some herbs, and some things. Yeah. I don't think it's not like I'm eating 100 grams of fiber per day. It's like your microbiome, your probiotics are coming from nature, from living on the ground, from not being sterile.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is the way to do it, and the way that is accessible for people. Like, it really is accessible for everyone. You don't need to pay $100 for a bottle of probiotics, and just even fermenting a little bit of vegetables is super easy. It's salt and water. Like, there's nothing to it. And then all of a sudden you've transformed this product into this, lowly vegetable into something that's like bacteria rich, and it's got the wild yeast from where you live. Like, I mean, there's so much that we can do in that realm, and simply like what you're saying about eating on the ground and getting rid of these ideas of sterilization. Like, healthy food does not need to be sterilized. It's sick food that needs like all this handling, like, you look at the chickens in the grocery store and there's a sticker on it on like how to properly handle a chicken. And it's astonishing to me. Like I often will put up pictures, on Instagram, I used to, but like on Substack, where I'll have like a pot of stew as an example. And I'm like day 3 of it sitting on my stove. Like I literally do not use a refrigerator. I cook the meat and it just sits there.
Oh, wow.
Like, and when I go to my farmer friends' places, it's the same thing. Everyone's got pots and it's like, this is 2 days old. This roast has been sitting here for animals that are healthy do not make you sick. And it's the same thing with like what you're saying, like these bacteria and, even the dirt and the soil and the funguses, all this stuff that's like around us that gets on our hands and we don't wash our hands and we just eat, or pet your dog. And you just like, all these things are beneficial. They're beneficial for our guts. Yeah, I'm with you also on the fiber. I maybe if you're a gorilla, but not for a lowly old human like me. I think fiber is one of the biggest scams that we've been sold.
I agree. I think I'm not like afraid. I'm like not against fiber. Perhaps I'm eating, a whole fruit and it happens to have fiber, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's not like I'm trying to get fiber. I think really it's just a proxy for eating whole foods. So if you look at all the research and people who eat higher fiber diets or more fruits and vegetables are healthier, I kind of could agree with that research in a different way. It's a proxy for people who eat whole foods and eat better, right? That's all it is. I think that's our obsession with even fruits and vegetables in general. They aren't magic. They're okay. They're delicious and they can provide something, but there's nothing magical about them. The organ meats are magical. Like the animal nutrition is the health part. I think the fruits and vegetables, it's just, oh yeah, it's great. You're eating whole foods in their whole form. Great.
Yeah. And I think too, that a lot of times we are given substitutes for not eating food in the quantities, but also in the way that it was intended to eat. Like you mentioned, organs, like organ meats are the superfood in our diets, but so too is like, the way that we eat food. Like when I say we, I'm like, if the average consumer going to the grocery store, when they go to pick up some meat, they're, buying like chicken breasts, or they're buying, the tender cuts of steaks, or they're, everything is boneless in the grocery stores. That whole nose to tail, that whole like glycine methionine ratio is completely off kilter. And people are just not, people think that if there's chew to meat, that there's something wrong with it, that that's not how it's supposed to be. And that glycine is so integral. And, I did a whole series last week on my Substack on just showing like, yes, here's why we need glycine in our diets, but here's how to get glycine in your diets. And a lot of people that read my stuff and that are subscribers and stuff already eat really well. And even a lot of them were saying, okay, like I need to up my game here, because I can see where I'm getting a lot of that pure muscle meat, right? And I'm not incorporating things like, which is a big thing for me, like head cheese and the roulettes that you mentioned earlier, and like just gnawing on making my own pork rinds, or like eating the skin, gnawing on the bones. Like I'll tell you a story. I was at a friend's place a couple months ago, and she had bought an organic grocery store chicken, and I had a thigh that had a bone in it, and I could bite through that bone with my teeth, and I clued in, because I've heard people say before, just gnaw on the ends of these chicken bones. If I did that with my birds, my teeth would shatter. There is no way in hell that I could get through any of those. And it doesn't matter if it's the ducks, the turkeys, the geese, or the chickens. If I tried to do that, my teeth would snap. And on this grocery store chicken, which was organic, but eating on the ends, it just crumbled against my teeth. And I realized like these animals were raised inside without access to outside. There's no like grasses or bugs. It's like a pure vegetarian fed bird, but there was no mineralization in those bones at all. Like they just weren't mineralized. It's like the human equivalent of osteoporosis, you know? And so if it's not in the meat because of the way the animal's raised, how the heck do we think that we're going to get it? You can make a bone broth with that if you want, and I'm sure there's something in it, but to think that that is like going to give you the nutrient density that you need, especially in this world that we're living in now, I think is folly. So it's just another reason that we need to know, like, who's growing our food, how they're growing it, get educated on the breeds of animals, because, you know, in that case, it's those big Cornish cross birds that are mature by the time they're 6 to 7 weeks old. And if you keep them any longer than that, their legs start blowing out on them because they're bred to have huge breasts on them. They're just like a Franken chicken, really. And so, like, are we willing to, you know, meet with farmers and pay those farmers or to raise animals that are maybe kept a little bit longer, but are going to be able to give our bodies that nutrition that we need? Like, these are all things that we need as people that eat to be connected and participate in our food system. We can't just sit around and give them the money for what is on offer. It needs to be participatory, and there needs to be an exchange there. So, yeah, no to the grocery store chickens, I'd say.
Well, let's do it. Well, that makes me think of these bones of these poor people who are trying to be vegetarian themselves.
Oh,
You don't see some of the outward problems, you know? Like, I just thinking about it, I ran into some vegetarian people and they look okay. They look like they are carrying extra weights. They're just not quite thriving because, you know, their body's just not getting what it's needing. And then I'm thinking about their bones and what's going to happen as they age. And then I even thought of the documentary that the Heart and Soil guys made with the placenta of the animal-based woman versus the vegetarian woman. And the placenta of the meat eater was rich and dark and real. And the vegetarian looks so bad and just diseased almost. And we can't, but we just don't see these things on the outside. It's like, what is going on the inside of these people? And how do you even wake them up either? Because they claim that they're okay, or they seem to be doing okay, but you just know that they're not, right? You just know that that's the same type of thing is happening just through science. I mean, we know certain science about minerals and vitamins and what we need and bone structure and this and that. It just mathematically is not going to work out if you're trying to be vegan.
no, you know, I heard, I'm kind of hesitant. I'm not sure if I should say this or not, but I'll go for it. I heard an interview with a midwife about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, and she was talking about the quality. So you're mentioning the placenta, and she was talking about the quality of the tissues of women that were vegetarian or vegans long term before having a baby. And she was saying that the lining of the like vaginal canal actually gets thinned out and almost like parchmenty instead of, you know, a thick sort of lining. And so she was seeing a lot more injuries just in the birthing of babies coming through the vaginal canal because these tissues were so compromised. And I mean, to me, that's just like a little window into, like you're saying, we can't see what's going on inside of us, but there's clues there. And I think that's why, I mean, you said that you know some vegetarians and vegans that look like they're doing okay or whatever, but I don't. I don't know anyone that's been a vegan long term that looks like they're doing okay at all. I've just never seen it. I have a cousin who's been a vegan for 20 years, and
Well, not vegan. I'll just say vegetarian.
okay. Well, I have a cousin that's been a vegan. I don't know if I should say vegetarian, vegan. I don't know, for 20 years, but She's maybe a year or two older than me, and I don't think she's all there mentally anymore. And it's just this, it's almost like this dulling of the life force. She's a lovely woman, but just very slow and kind of spaced out, not tethered. I think that, I don't know personally. I don't believe that anyone can be long-term vegetarian and be healthy. I think there's just too many nutrients that are missing. You can maybe get by with little symptoms for a long time, but my measure of health is one of vibrancy. Like, I want to be level in my emotions. I want to be clear in my thinking. I want to have the energy to physically do the physically demanding jobs I have to do in a day. I want to be able to think. I'm a writer. I want to be able to sit down and be able to process things through my brain. I want to be able to get up and do things and not have pain. I want to be able to, like I said, age well. And I think I'm aging well in the sense that, I watched my mom go through menopause at my age, and holy Moses, it was 5 years of hellacious, emotional ups and downs and all sorts of things. And it scared me, because I thought, oh, is this my birthright? Is this that's not my experience, thus far. So, I think it's kind of like when people say to me, oh, I'm healthy. My question is always like, what does that mean to you? Like, what is health to you? Because I have a really high bar of what it is. And I think, I have an expectation.
Well, no, yeah, I think the bar is set so low. People say they're healthy, but then they're like on 5 medications. They can't lift like a 40-pound dumbbell, and their brain's fried already. I know these people. I'm not saying that I've ran into any like healthy vegetarians at all, really, and definitely not vegan. So I just think the bar's so low that people think that they're healthy. And that's, like I'm saying, we need to rethink what it is to be human. We need to rethink how long we can live, rethink, what a 80-year-old looks like. Like Mark Sisson, that's what a 68-year-old could look like and should look like. And I was just thinking about Dr. Michael Rose, who looks great for his age. I interviewed him, and we just went out to UC Davis, where he just ended his professorship for like 40 years there. And sorry, not UC Davis, UC Irvine. And he thinks, he's an aging researcher, and he thinks that humans could live to 160 and easily. And that we did. I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth. He's kind of careful about talking about this publicly, but he did say it. That he's like, yeah, our ancestors could have lived to 160. Why? We don't even know what we're looking at. We use this modern frame to look at remains of humans, and we're like, oh, okay, this person has like worn out bones that matches a 60-year-old human now. So we're like, okay, this person was probably 60 when they died. That person could have been 150, and that it took them that long to get worn out bones.
Oh, absolutely. It goes back to that, us, just our knowledge. We're just so high on our own intellect and technology. And it's, in a century from now, they're going to look back on what we thought, and just, it's going to be laughable. I always have that in the back of my mind. We don't know anything. It's just so rudimentary. And so that's why I have so much more faith in looking back to how we used to live. When you see how people used to look and how they used to function compared to where we are now. I think because where I live, I'm kind of isolated, and I'm not all that often in a city. And so it seems to me like, and I admit it's probably my perception, but whenever I go into the city, I look around and I'm like, we're on this accelerated downward spiral. Like, people just look dulled, and it's beyond big waistlines. Like, it really is. It's like, how many women are losing their hair, and just people that look miserable and everyone seems on edge. Like, why is everyone so angry? Everyone seems so angry, like, and ready to like get in a fight with you if you touch their, hip by accident or something. Like, it's just, so I totally agree with you. What are we even looking at? Like, anyway, I recently watched this like video. I won't get into the whole climate change thing, but I recently watched a video and they were just showing that, we only have so many decades of climate research behind our belt. And yet, we're saying the temperatures are warming, but they're now learning that's because we were at an all-time low when they started measuring them, and the cycles go up and down. So it's just, everything is context. It's all context. And I think most people just take the context that they are told as if it's some absolute truth, instead of like running it through their own filter of, wait a minute, like, and having the confidence to know that your voice is valid as well. And it's okay to question things, and it's okay to be different from other people. It's okay to think differently than other people. I mean, the people that think a certain way, I look at how they're living and I'm like, I don't want that life. So I'm cool with not thinking the way you're thinking.
Well, we're creating our own society. I talk about this a lot these days about there's a certain number of us that are just going to be off on our own, living well, living like humans. And we're going to be oddities in the future. And there's going to be the Walmart folk that show up on the tour bus in like a rascal scooter. And it's like Wall-E World. They're just not going to understand what we are. And I don't know if that sounds elitist or like pompous or something, but I think that's what's happening.
I think you're onto something there.
Oh, it's a reverse circus. I saw a meme of the circus. It was like from the 1920s, they had the circus folk, and it was it was like the world's fattest man, or like the bearded lady and the guy covered in tattoos. And then the owner was like, "I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you go. You just aren't freaks anymore." But we're going to be the freaks. We're going to be the freaks someday. Oh man, we got to wrap it up here. I want to do one more little thing, because I've shown your video to a lot of people. We made a little 5-minute video from the footage we got from you for Food Lies. We just put it out on YouTube a while back. And I actually showed it during my presentation at some conferences, and I clipped it in there to talk about this, like why these vegan plant-based diets that are pushed on us make no sense, and why there's so much more context about death and about this. For your food, something has to die for something to live, that nature, has its cycles, it's harmonious. How you're up in Canada and you are on this land, and you run cattle through the forest. That's what silvopasturing is, for people who don't know. It's running the cattle underneath the trees, and you have this certain land, and that's what you can do with your land. And I don't want to keep take all your points here, but to grow crops, you would have to destroy nature. And I just want to leave you with this line you said, talking about a salad that some vegan would get, and they're sitting in Santa Monica and think that they're all righteous and that they're a virtuous person, and that we're the enemy eating meat, and that their salad is death on a plate. There's just no blood.
Yeah, and this goes back to being disconnected from nature, and I think that's why, as sovereign human beings, it's our responsibility to connect to nature and to understand our food and to understand our food systems, because when we don't, we're easily manipulated, like the vegan in Santa Monica eating salad to have a cruelty-free meal. And you saw where I live. I mean, we have small pastures and we live on a giant rock on the cusp of the Canadian Shield. It's forested, it's rocky. We have shallow soils in some parts. We have wetlands where there's beavers. We have an incredible amount of biodiversity. And I'm committed to working within that biodiversity instead of steamrolling everything and trying to grow these monocrops, that cereals and plants that would require the erasure of all of this biodiversity in order to thrive. And so, most of the land in the world is like our land, not looking like our land, but it's not arable land. It's not the big flat fields where we can grow a bunch of soy and corn. And so this is how we have to be able to utilize and to understand that many small farms growing some produce or some animals, many small farms is what feeds communities. And by somebody like, let's just make that Santa Monica, vegan be here where I live, there's, and be a fruitarian or something, everything that comes onto that plate is coming from a monoculture being shipped in from who knows where, covered in, the fossil fuels everyone's so worried about. Nothing is local. They literally wouldn't survive if they had to eat local and be a fruitarian or a vegetarian, or, even just someone that wants strawberries in December every day or whatever it is. And so I think that when we understand and when we're connected to our food systems, to nature, to the cycles, to the circadian rhythm, to the seasons of the food around us, we are able to take responsibility in a really profound way and not be so easily manipulated by BS solutions like fake meat and all these this ludicrous notion that cows are killing the world by farting and burping out methane. Like we get smarter, and when we're smarter and we're educated truly, then they can't mess with us, right? We can take control, and there's a great deal of confidence and security in learning these things and knowing them for yourself and being able to be like, that's nonsense. And I know it's nonsense because of this. And then the bonus on top of all of that is we thrive. Our health thrives. I mean, we get to feel good. We get to age well. We get to be 160 years old.
Let's do it. I wanted to start a movement. Well, we are. I mean, we are, but I wanted to start a broader movement. I didn't want to start this, actually. We've just been talking about it at conferences with just lots of people, lots of great people. And I want to announce it now. It's not my movement, and it's no money's going to be made from it. This is just the Yes to Meat movement. And I think that's the name for it because a couple years ago, they tried to roll out the Eat Lancet planetary diet, and it was 7 grams of red meat per day that was allowed. And it was this whole thing. And there was this big movement of people hashtagging posts with yes to meat, right? Hashtag yes, the number 2 meat. So, and I even saw this in the Lancet Journal. They were worried about this movement, and they showed some statistics of how many people were using this hashtag. So I wanted to bring that back, and I just made a little website and Instagram and whatever and Slack group this morning. And so I just want to start it, and it's not my movement. We're going to do it at the Sapien Center. I have a bunch of young people with time and skills and desire to change the world, and I made yes2meat.org. I made yes to meat. This is all with the number 2 on Instagram, yes to meat on Twitter, and a yes to meat Slack. And we're just going to do it and see what happens. And maybe Tara will be there. Maybe we can organize ourselves. I have no idea. We're just going to see what happens because the vegans are so organized, right? They have a stupid documentary come out on Netflix, and they're hundreds of thousands of people tweeting about it and making a big deal about it, and the news outlets cover it. We need to organize and it's not carnivore, it's not paleo, it's not keto. It's just people who understand ancestral health, that humans need meat, that this is a good, healthy thing. And I wanted to announce that, and hopefully you'll be a part of it. I still don't know what it means, but we'll do something.
Well, I love it. I would absolutely love to be a part of it. And I'll do what I can from my corner of the world for sure. I love the stuff you're up to, Brian.
Well, thank you. I love what you're doing. You inspire me. Continue to do your thing. Are you going to write a book, or are you just doing the more short form content?
I'm working on a book. It's going pretty well. My newsletter comes out every week, and I have a couple little plans of what I'm going to do after I'm done my book. But for now, that's where most of my energies are going.
Well, that's great.
Are you writing a book?
Well, kind of. I'm trying to finish the film. It's so much work. I don't think people understand that how much I want this to be done. People are saying they want it done. I'm like, yeah. I went through 600 pages of transcripts and had to highlight them and pull out the quotes. And that was just from the last film tour we did, and have to write the script. But yes, I have a great guy, Tim Reese in the UK, who's helping me write the Food Lies book. And we kind of took a break on that because I need to finish the film, but then he wrote a lot of it already. And then we can take the new parts that I'm finishing and expand those into the chapters that I'm in charge of. And then we'll have a Food Lies book. So yes, there's that. But I really just need to film out.
Nice.
And yeah, if anyone listening knows Chris Pratt, we're trying to play the game where we get the celebrity involved. So I'm throwing that out to the world. Chris Pratt, he was like the schlubby guy on Parks and Rec, and now he's a Marvel superhero. And he seems like a great guy. Everyone says he's super nice. He eats real foods. He likes meat and whatever, produce, vegetables. Seems great. So we're trying to finish this film. We're pitching it around this summer. We're finishing the first episode so we can pitch the big platforms. So that's the update. And we're going to do it. This is our year.
Well, next time you're in Canada, you're allowed to come back here now. There's always a spot at our table for you and your crew.
I appreciate that. We're going to be globetrotting when we finish this film series. And yes, that would be amazing. We could have showings around the world and little meetups and all that stuff. So thank you for that. Follow Tara. Well, follow her Substack. Mm-hmm. Just to subscribe on your website, slowdownfarmstead.com.
Yep.
Find her there. And if you're subscribed to that, you'll hear when the book's done. And I already know it's going to be amazing. And thank you so much for coming on again. And I hope to see you soon.
Okay. Looking forward to it, Brian. Thanks so much.